we ask the computer to perform. Generally, we ask the computer to perform some calculations for us, some computations that are based on the conditions, some repetitive tasks that are to be performed repeatedly so that our time can be saved. These types of computations and calculations we ask the computer to perform for us. So, how do we give the instructions to the computer? By using some programming language, because the computer does not understand the language that we speak. Right now we are speaking in English, right? But computer does not understand this language. Computer understands its own language, that is a programming language. Okay, through the programming language we can interact with the computer, because we are human beings, we know only English like language, or the languages that we speak in our daily life, that language we know only. But computer is a machine, so it does not understand that language. Okay, so we have to interact with the computer with some certain set of instructions, so that the computer understands what we are asking it to perform, right? So this is what programming, computer programming is. This is what all about languages. So according to Wikipedia, this is the formal definition of computer programming, that it is the process of designing and building an executable computer program for accomplishing a specific computing task. Obviously, when we ask the computer to perform some task, that is always a computing task. Maybe it can be a calculation, or it can be a computation based on certain conditions. So this is a set of instructions that we give to the computer so that it can perform the specified task, whatever we ask it to perform, right? So this is the formal definition of programming. This is the hierarchy of programming languages. You can see at the bottom of the pyramid there lies hardware, and above that hardware there are five more steps in this pyramid that denote the generations of languages. First generation language, second, then third, then fourth, and then fifth generation languages. We are currently in fifth generation of computers, and the fifth generation computers are quite artificially intelligent computers. So we are at that stage, but the journey started from machine language. Now, first of all, the machine language was developed. Machine language is the language that a computer understands. It's in the form of zeros and ones. We normally call it a binary language, because binary language is having only two codes to denote the sequence of instructions, that is 0 and 1. So we call it a binary language. That is the language of computers basically. But if you write all the programs in zeros and ones stream of bits, then we will not be able to understand anything in that. Are we able to understand binary language programs? I don't think so. No, we can't write the programs in binary language. We can decode, we can convert some other language program to binary language program, but we will not be able to understand, because as a human being, it's difficult for us to remember the numbers, such large stream of numbers, such large stream of bits. So to overcome this problem, assembly language was developed, which used to use the codes. Then when it became difficult for a human being to learn or to memorize the programs written in binary language, so assembly language was developed. That assembly language used mnemonic codes. We call the codes used in this language as mnemonic codes. Mnemonic codes are the instructions, small instructions, like to add two numbers, we write add. To multiply two numbers, we write mul, like that. No? So we use these types of codes to perform some calculations in assembly language. Basically, assembly language is used by microprocessors. You all might have heard about Intel Pentium i3, i5, i7. All these are microprocessors. the types of microprocessors. Okay, so for these microprocessors, assembly language was developed to interact with the microprocessors, to give the instructions or to give the coding in microprocessor chips. This assembly language was invented. After that, when even then assembly language has its limitations, and it was having only a few capabilities. It was not able to develop. We were not able to develop interactive programs in assembly language. So there was a need to invent or develop some other language also that is easier for the uh, computer user to use. So that was the era of third generation languages, where C, C++, Java, Fortran, these languages were developed. These languages actually are having English-like structure, so that the users can easily use it, easily understand it, and even it is very easy for the students also to use. Right, students also can write program after learning the basics of the language. They can also write the programs in it. So it is a very user friendly, these languages are very user friendly languages, and we use English like structure, English like statements in all these programming languages. So after third generation languages, there was a need to perform some more advanced functions, like to interact with the databases, underlying databases. At the back end of every application, there runs a database. So to interact with that database, we need to develop some more advanced languages, such as SQL and Oracle. These systems use these kinds of languages that can interact with the databases and the hardware part of the machines. Also, some they are used to design some applications. So Python also belongs to fourth generation languages. Python is also a fourth generation language. It is also a fourth generation category language, because it can be used to develop very highly interactive applications. It can interact with the underlying databases as well as the hardware. So this is a very interactive language. We can develop graphical applications in Python. And talking about fifth generation languages, these languages are developed for artificially intelligent computers. Prolog and Smalltalk are the languages of fifth generation. By using Prolog, you can design an artificially intelligent program, artificially intelligent machine that can think like a human brain, you can say. Not exactly matching to human brain, but yes, definitely it can provide you the simulation of a human brain. You can design robots using Prolog language. The robot is a hardware part, and you can design the programs for robots using Prolog and Smalltalk. So this is all about the generations of languages. So currently we are at fourth and fifth generation. We are using fourth and fifth generation languages these days. Somewhere, somehow, we are using third generation languages also, Java, C, C++. These are also not obsolete exactly, but obviously the trend is of Python these days. So let's quickly begin. Why Python? So these are a few features of Python. Why we use Python, why Python is so widely used languages these days. Even all the schools, all the curriculums are following Python language, and it is prescribed by all the state boards and CBSE board also. Why it is so? Because it is very easy to learn language. It's a very simple language. So because it's having a very simple English like structure, English like sentences are used in Python language, so it can be very easily used by the students as well, for the beginners. And it is having two modes. It supports two modes. You can work in two modes in Python. One is interactive mode and the other one is script mode. We will be discussing these modes afterwards. And it provides us the huge library of modules. There is a huge library of modules in Python that is having some predefined modules. Already defined modules are there in Python that you can use to perform some functions, some tasks in your program. You can use already defined modules, and need not write the lengthy programs for that. You can easily use the predefined modules from the library. And it's a portable language. That means it is machine independent. Machine independent, I mean that you can use the Python language on Windows operating system, as well as Linux, as well as Mac operating system. On all operating systems you can use Python in the same way. There is no difference in Python programming. If you are changing the operating system, there is no difference in that. Maybe the interface is different, but there is no difference in the programming. Okay, so it is having a very simple structure, as I have already discussed, and the most important thing is that it is free to use for commercial purpose, free to use. So you can easily download it, and use it and distribute it commercially. Uh, as I already discussed with you that you can develop graphically interactive apps by using photo generation languages. So Python language also provides us the environment where we can develop interactive applications. So it's having a very large capability. Python is having a very large capability, and it's a very interactive language. Let's start how to use this language. As I have told you that Python works in two different modes. The first one is the interactive mode, and the next one is the script mode. This is the interactive mode of Python. When you open Python, or when you start Python for the first time, this is the first window. This shell window is there that you get after starting Python language. You can see that three greater than symbols are there. It is known as Python prompt. And in front of this Python prompt, you can write the commands. Okay, like in command prompt or DOS prompt, we can write the commands. Na? And the same way, you can write the commands in front of these greater than symbols. This is known as Python prompt. You can easily see that I have written some commands here. You can easily see that some commands are written over here, and after writing every command you need to press enter key, and immediately you get the result. Fine. This is the script mode of Python. As you have already seen in interactive mode, after every command you need to press an enter key, and that is only one command at a time. Okay, if you want to write the whole program in one go and run it or execute it in one step only, then we need script mode. In script mode, you can write the lengthy programs, and afterwards you have to save that program with the extension .py. Always remember, when you write the program in Python, then you have to save all the programs with the extension .py. If you will not save the program with the extension .py, then it will be just simple text file. It will not be executed. So always remember to save your programs with the extension .py. And after that, to run the simple programs, to run the programs in script mode, you have to go to the run menu and click on the run module command, or you can use F5 function key to run the program also. Okay, so let us quickly see how to use these modes, both the modes. See here, this is the interactive mode of Python. This is the shell window of Python. I have installed 3.7.5 version of Python. This is the shell window. here shell is written. These are the three greater than symbols where we have where we have got that cursor blinking over here. That means it is ready to accept the input. You can write the command here. Suppose I'm writing a is equal to 10. This is a single command. B is equal to 20. Another command. C is equal to a plus b. So these are the different commands. These are three single commands, three different commands, and this is the fourth one where I am going to print the value of C. The sum of A and B is C. Right? So this is how we do the programming in interactive mode. Here you have here I have written three commands by giving the value 10 to a variable, 20 to b variable, and then I have calculated the sum of these two variables and printed the sum by using the print statement, and immediately you have got the result. If you want to write this whole program in one go, we can always go to this menu bar. You can see this menu bar on the top of the Python shell window. Here, file menu is there, edit menu, shell, debug, options, window, help. These are the menus available in the menu bar. If we go to the file menu, new file option is there. When I will click on this new file option, again you can see one more window opens. This window is the script mode of Python. Here I have opened these two windows side by side. This is the script mode, and in the script mode you can write the program here. Same program I am going to write, but uh, I will not be executing the statements one by one. I will be writing the whole program in one go, and then we will run this program. All right, so this is the program, and first of all you have to save the program. From file menu, go to the save option. This is the very simple step that we do in every software in computer. Wherever you want to save the program, you can save, and remember to give the .py extension. Here I have given the name first to the program, and .py is the extension given to the program, and here I am going to save it. Now see the code of the program is changed, and now to run this program we have to go to the run menu. As you can see clearly, these two windows are having different menu bar, different menus in the menu bar. These two menus are different in interactive mode and in script mode. In interactive mode, file and edit menu are there. In script mode, file and edit menu are there. But shell and debug are the different menus in interactive mode. Instead of shell and debug menus, we are having format and run menu in script mode. Okay, so these two menus are different in both the modes. From run menu, we have to go to the run module command, or you can simply press F5 key. Okay, so by simply pressing the F5 key, this program will run. So see, again, the same output we have got here. The sum of A and B is 30. Okay, so this is how we write the program in script mode and in interactive mode, right? So this is the difference between using interactive mode and the script mode of Python. Okay, let's go back to the presentation. So this is we have just seen the difference between interactive mode and the script mode. Now talking about compiling and interpreting process. In other languages, you might have seen, if you have used Java, C, C++, you might have seen first you need to compile the program before executing. We need to generate a bytecode for the program, or you can say object code. This first process is done in all the other languages like Java or C++. You have to write the source code first, any program. written in high-level programming languages known as source code. So we need to convert this source code into a byte code first or object code first. So we need to compile this program, and after compilation process is over, then only we can execute the program and we get the output. Okay, so this is how we execute a program in other languages. But in Python, instead of compiling the program, we directly interpret the programs line by line. Interpreter and compiler, you might have heard about these two translators of source programming languages. To convert high level language to machine level language, the translator programs are used. So compiler and interpreter are two translators that we use to convert high level language programs into low level or machine level instructions. But in Python, we simply use interpreter that works line by line, that immediately converts the source code into the executable code that can be executed immediately, and that's why we get immediate results in Python. So in Python, the execution process is faster than other languages, right? So this is the difference between compilation and interpretation in Python and other languages. Before we write more complex programs, there are certain basics that we need to discuss. These are the expressions, operators, variables, different types of operators that we use in Python. So we will be discussing these basics first. So whatever computing task you ask the computer to perform or calculation, any mathematical calculation that we write is known as an expression, and the numbers on which we perform any action are known as operands. Okay, and the action that we perform with the help of some symbols like plus or multiply or minus, there are some symbols used in every programming language and in mathematics also, to calculate the sum of two values or to calculate the product of two values. We use certain symbols. So these symbols are known as operators, and by putting all the operands and operators together, we get an expression, right? Here I have given an example: 1 plus 4 into 3. This is a simple expression that I have given here. 1 and 4 and 3, these three are known as operands. These are the operands. And plus and star symbol here, star symbol is known as asterisk symbol. Asterisk symbol is a multiplication symbol in any programming language. In other programming languages also, star is the symbol for multiplication. So these are known as the operators. These are the arithmetic operators. Arithmetic means mathematical, to perform mathematical calculations. So these are the arithmetic operators like plus, minus, multiply or divide, and modulus operator is there. Modulus operator, what is the difference between division operator and modulus operator? Yes, can anyone tell me?
Yes, ma'am. Division operator, we will get the quotient.
Okay.
Modulus
Modulus, we
operator,
will
we will
take the
get the
remainder.
remainder. Remainder.
Yeah, by using the division operator, that is the forward slash, we get the quotient of the division operation, and by using the modulus, we get the remainder. Okay, so this is the difference between these two operators. These two are very useful operators in certain programs. And the last one is the double star symbol, double asterisk. Double asterisk stands for exponentiation. When we want to calculate the power of one number to the other, then we use this exponential symbol. Okay, and when performing mathematical calculations, or when we are solving some mathematical expression, then we need to follow certain rules. We need to follow certain order in which the operations are to be performed. This is known as precedence. As you can see that multiplication, division, modulus and they are having the higher precedence than the plus and minus symbols. or you can say over addition and subtraction. So we have to follow these rules while performing the calculations, while solving any expression. So we have to follow these rules. And obviously, if there are parentheses involved in that expression, we have to solve the parentheses first, and then we have to solve the other operators. So this rule is known as BODMAS in mathematics, and in computers we call it BEDMAS. BEDMAS stands for brackets, exponentiation, then division, then multiplication, then addition, and then subtraction. So this is the rule that we have to follow while solving the expressions. So talking about some other types of operators, we are having two more types of operators here: relational operators and logical operators. Relational operators are used to perform the comparisons between two numerical quantities. When we have to compare two numerical values, then we use relational operators. Two numbers can be equal to each other, they cannot be equal to each other. One number can be less than the other one, the other number can be the greater than the first one. So these are the basic symbols that we all are using since our childhood in mathematics also. Just the way to represent it is different. In mathematics, we represent not equal in a different way. But here we use exclamation sign and equal to sign, because we don't use that not equal to sign in on the keyboard. So we use this combination here to represent not equal to sign, and for greater than and equal to, and less than and equal to. These two symbols are also different in computer and mathematics. So after that, we are having some logical operators. Three logical operators are there basically: and operator, and or, and not. These three operators are there. And operator is used to judge two conditions together. If both the conditions are true, only then a certain course of action will take place. Or otherwise, if any one of these conditions is false, then that condition will totally become false. And the or operator considers any one condition of the given ones. If any one condition is true, in that situation, the program will be executed. And not operator gives us the opposite of the condition. If the condition is false, only then the operation will be performed. If the condition is true, then we will not perform any operation. So these are the basic operators that we use in Python language: arithmetic operators, relational operators, and logical operators. These are the basic operators that we use in Python to perform the calculations or to write the basic programs. All right. So before we move further, let's quickly talk about variables. To perform any task, right? Like I had given you an example in the beginning, in the interactive mode and script mode example. I have shown you that A is equal to 10, B is equal to 20. What does it mean? What is A? What is B? These are some containers in which I have put some values, right? So these containers are the memory spaces basically, which are used to store a certain value for a temporary period till we are executing that program. For that period only, these memory locations are there where we save some values, where we store some values on which we are going to perform the operations. So these are known as the variables. Okay, these variables are used to store the values, and we can use the variables to store the out calculation into some other variable else also. So to perform all these tasks, we need variables. Okay, how to assign a value to the variable is another important thing. Like here I have shown you that we make use of assignment operator. One more operator is there in Python that is known as assignment operator. An assignment operator. This single equal to sign is used to assign some value to a variable. Like here in my example on the screen, x is equal to 5, a is equal to 3.14. Here, these are the certain memory spaces that are named by x and a, and a particular value is stored in these locations. Okay, so the variables and values are used in the expressions, and I hope this concept is clear, the variables concept. Let's move further. Before going further, let's quickly solve a few programs, or let's quickly do a program here. Yes, anybody is going to ask something? Okay, so here, as you have seen that we have added two numbers in script mode as well as Python, as well as interactive mode. So here A is the variable, B is the variable, and C is the variable in which we are storing the result of that particular operation. We are performing addition operation here, and we are using the C variable in which we are storing the addition of two numbers, or the result of addition of two numbers in C variable, and then by using the print statement, I'm printing the result of the program. Okay, so let's move further. Uh, the next concept is about the loops and selection statements in Python. In any programming language, we use loops and selection statements or conditional statements, you can say. In our daily life also, if I give you one condition that if it is raining outside, then you will not be able to go to market. Obviously, if it is raining outside, then definitely I will not be going outside if I have made some plan to go to the market in the evening, but it started raining, so I will not be able to go to the market. So that's way we are depending upon the conditions in our daily life also, right? We take certain decisions based on the conditions, right? Sometimes based upon the conditions of the weather, sometimes based on the conditions, based on the financial condition also. We need to take some decisions, right? So this is the basic concept of conditional statements that we use in Python also. That depending upon some condition, we take certain actions. Okay, there is always a combination of a condition and an action. Okay, if some condition is given, depending upon that condition, you have to perform some action. If that particular condition is true, or you can say is valid, only then a particular action will be performed. If that particular condition that you have given in the program is not valid condition, not a valid condition, or not an appropriate value is getting calculated in that condition, so we will not perform the certain action. Okay, so this is how we use conditional programming in Python. Let us move on to the next topic. This is if statement. If statement is used to perform this type of task that I have already discussed right now, that depending upon a certain condition, if that condition is true, only then we will perform some action. Otherwise, we will not perform the action. Okay, as it is seen in the flow chart also, if the given condition is true, only then we will execute the statements. Otherwise, we will not execute the statements. Okay, for example, here some example is given. If the marks variable is having greater than 35 value, greater than or equal to 35 value, there is some condition that if your marks are greater than or equal to 35 only then your application will be accepted. Sometimes it may happen, no? So these are some conditions. These are the conditions based upon which the action is going to be performed. Okay, so let us quickly see how we use this. Suppose I'm giving another variable, I'm using another variable age in my program, and I'm giving the value 18 to this age variable. And now I'm going to check this age variable if age is greater than or equal to 18, and accordingly,
Ma'am, can you just
I'm testing this age variable. If the value of age variable is greater than or equal to 18, only then I will give the message here, you are eligible to vote. Okay, eligible to vote. As you can see that after writing the if condition in if statement, I have put a colon at the end, and immediately when I have entered the enter key, the cursor has moved to the next line, but at an indented location, indented position. Okay, so this is how we write the statements in Python programming. We don't use curly brackets or any other types of brackets in Python like we used to use it in Java or C++ or C, that to define the blocks of statements, we need to put curly brackets around them. But here, that task is done by indenting. Okay, when we are writing this print statement inside the for loop, that means inside the if statement. Sorry, inside the if statement. If this condition is true, only then the print statement will be executed. So these two statements are related to each other, interlinked. Okay, that's why it is indented inside the if statement. Fine. So let us save this program and run it. See, you are eligible to vote. Okay, because I have given the value 18 to age variable. Now I am comparing the age variable to value 18. So that is true. So you will get the message, you are eligible to vote. But if I change this value to 10, suppose age is equal to 10, the person who is having age is equal to 10, he will not be able to vote, right? So accordingly, we will have to first we have to save the program again if you are making some changes into it, and again you have to run. Now see, we have got no output here. Why? Because I have changed the value to 10, and now the condition has become false. Now the condition that I have given in the program has become invalid, false. It will give us the false result because age variable is not greater than 18, or it is not equal to 18 as well. So the value of age variable is 10, and it is not greater than or equal to 18. So there is no message printed here. That means this print statement has not been executed. Okay. Now, if I want to get some message, even if my condition becomes false, then what is the other method to do that? What is the otherwise statement? Sometimes we in our daily language also, in our daily life also, we talk about like this: if it will rain outside, I will not go, otherwise I will go. See, you know, so we have used otherwise word. That otherwise, we have certain actions for otherwise condition also. If it is raining outside, I will not go, otherwise I will go. Okay, so we have got some actions to perform in otherwise situation also. So here in programming language also, we can perform that action by using else statement. If statement is always used with the else statement if you want to perform the otherwise task. Okay, after writing the else statement, we need not write the condition again. Else itself means that this condition that is given in if statement is returning a false value. Okay, so we need not repeat the condition here, and simply we can write the other message that we want to get after this value or this condition is not true. You are not eligible You are not eligible. Okay. So this way, this program now gets completed. Control S for saving the program again, and F5 to run the program again. And see, now we have got the message that you are not eligible. Okay, if the value of age variable is 10, then you are not eligible to vote. So this is the otherwise message that I have got. If that condition is false, then what to do otherwise, right? So this is the message that I have got if the condition becomes false. So this way, if and else statement work. Let us quickly go back to our presentation and see what more is there in the presentation. There is if else statement. Now the flowchart shows two-way movement. If the condition is true, yes, we will execute certain set of statements. If the condition is false, then we will follow the other path to perform. We have got some other conditions. Okay, so sometimes it is there, we have to evaluate multiple conditions in a program also. One condition depends on the other condition. Sometimes we have to perform evaluation based on the multiple conditions. So then we use another construct here that is known as else if, or to be short in Python, we have given it the keyword that is used for else if is elif. ELIF, elif. Okay, so we can make the ladder of this if, elif, if, elif, 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 and at the last you have to put the else command, else statement. Okay, so this way you can perform the evaluation based upon multiple conditions as well in the program. Okay, so this is all about if else statement. Let's move on to the concept of loops. What do you mean by loops? Any one of you, can you please define or discuss what is the concept of loops?
Loops means
Repeating the same work again and again.
A set of statements.
Yes. Very true, very true. Thank you so much. So loops are used to perform a certain set of statements on a repetitive basis. Okay, if you want to write the name of certain name of an item or an element 10 times, so what you will do, you will write print statement 10 times. Okay, so this is the simplest way to perform this. But otherwise, if you want to avoid writing 10 times that statement, we can make use of for loop. Okay, or any other loop also. In Python, we are having two types of loops, for loop as well as while loop. Two types of loops are there in Python. This for loop is the simplest loop that we use in Python language. It is used to repeat the set of statements, and the concept of using this for loop is to give some starting value and the end value to this loop. When we are sure about how many number of times we are going to repeat a certain task, at that time we use for loop. Okay. For loop is always used with the range function. Here in this example also on the screen that you are seeing, in this example also I have used range function in which we have defined the value 1 and 6. 1 is the starting value from where the loop will start. The number of steps, I'm talking about the number of steps here. The number of steps that this loop is going to repeat is 1, 2, 6. 6 is the last value, but 6 steps will not be there. The final steps that this loop will be taking are 5. 1 to n minus 1. Okay, this first value to the last value minus 1. So 1 to n minus 1 we will perform the action with the help of for loop. So this loop will generate the values only up to 5. Okay, let us quickly see this example in script mode. Let us perform this practical here. You can also perform this practical along with me. For x in range 1, 6, and we we'll give a colon after that, and here print x. Okay. So if I want to print the value of this x variable in this particular range 1 to 6, okay, so we will write this statement, and let's run this, and you can see easily that the first 5 values are printed only. Okay, so as I told you that the last value will not be considered for this, because the loop will be executed up to the n minus 1 value only. Fine. So this is how the for loop works, and this is how the range function works in Python. Let's know something more about range function. The range function that I have used here works in 3 different manners. You can give only one value in range function, or you can give 2 values in range function, as we have given in this program, 1 and 6, like this. These are 2 values that denotes the start value and the stop value. And you can give 3 values also in the range function. The third value specifies the number of steps. Third value is the step value basically, and this value gives us the increment or decrement value, right? Like in this program, in the previous program, we can see if we want to print this, we want to print the numbers up to 11, or you can say suppose 10, and I'm going to skip a number in between. So I have given a step value of 2. Okay. So again, I'm running this program. Now see the difference in the output. After giving the step value, the output is changed. When we have not given the step value, the numbers were printed in a sequence from 1 to 5. But now here, the numbers are printed by skipping one value in between. The step value is 2, so it has skipped one value and the alternate number is printed. And the output is all the odd numbers from 1 to 10 are printed. Okay. If you change the values here from 10 to suppose 0, and the step value is -2, what will happen? Here I have given the starting value as to be a higher value, and then the last value is a lower value, and the step value is in a negative number, it is in minus. So now what will happen? See, what is printed here? The numbers in the reverse order. Yeah, so it's a reverse sequence of even numbers now, because now we are starting from 10. The first value is 10, and 2 numbers are skipped here. That means one alternate number is printed here. -2 tells us that we have to move in the reverse direction. -2 means we have to we have to subtract 2 numbers from the first number. Okay, and the last step value is 0. 0 is not printed here. The last stop value is 0, but 0 is not printed here. Why? Because we are calculating up to 1 only, okay, not to 2. And as soon as 2 value is there, we will get 2 minus 2 as 0. So we will stop there. That is the stop value. Okay, so we will stop there. This is how the for loop and range function work together. Now see, this is the concept of cumulative loops. Sometimes we use the loops to do some calculations, and these in these variables are initialized outside the for loop or outside the loops, and these that time these loops are known as cumulative loops. We perform the certain steps, and but at the last of that step, we calculate the result by performing all these all the steps of the loop. And we get the result only at the end. We don't get the result. We don't want to get the result in between. We just want to get the result after all the steps are performed. See again. Let us see. Here we have just printed the numbers. Now let us calculate the sum of these numbers. For that, I need to write another program here. First of all, we have to declare a variable, sum variable, and we have to initialize this sum variable to 0. Always remember, whatever programming language you are using, if you want to calculate the sum of certain values, you have to always initialize the result variable to 0. And if you are performing the product or multiplication of certain values, then you have to always define or initialize the result variable to 1. That is a simple basic of performing the calculations in programming languages. Always remember this. This is a trick. Here, generally students do mistakes here in this step. They don't initialize the result variable to 0 or 1. That's where we get the error. And now let's see how this cumulative loop works. Suppose I want to calculate the sum of first 10 values. So I will be giving this range 1 to 11. Okay. And at the end, we have to put a colon, and immediately see the cursor has moved to the next line, but to an indented position. Okay. So here we are going to calculate sum plus I. Okay. Sum plus I. And now see the difference. I am going to remove the indent for printing the result. Okay. Print the sum is sum. Okay. Now when we save this program and run it, so see the sum of first 10 values is 55. The loop will be executed from 1 to 10 only. 11 value is not considered. 11 minus 1 is 10. So 1 to 10 we will execute the loop. Now see the difference in indenting this statement, this print statement. I have removed the indent here consciously, because I just want to print the total value at the end of the loop. When this loop has been executed for all the steps, then at the end I want the result. But if I give the indent here, see how this output will be different. See, this output will give us the sum at every step. Okay. In the first step, the value 1 is printed because sum is 0. So sum plus 1 is 0 plus 1 is 1. Then 1 plus 2, next number is calculated. 1 plus 2 is 3. Then 3 plus 3 is 6. Then 6 plus 4 is 10. Then 10 plus 5 is 15. At every step, the statement is getting printed because I have given the print statement inside the for loops indentation. Okay, so this is the difference between indentation and removing the indentation. Just by putting the tab space, giving a tab space, you can indent the statement, and removing that indentation will give you the cumulative result of that loop. Okay, so this is the way how we use cumulative loops in Python programming. Now let's move further. Quickly you can write, I have given one exercise here. If you want to write this Python program that computes the factorial of an integer, if you want to write this program, you can quickly write on your Python screens in your script modes. You can quickly write this program and share the code in chat box. If you are facing any problem, then you can ask the query for writing this program, or you can do a hands-on practical in your Python windows. to compute the factorial of an integer? Or should we move further?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, okay. I think you people are all familiar with this factorial, how to calculate the factorial of an integer. So you can write this program afterwards also. So let us quickly move to the next topic, that is while loop. Similar to for loop, as you have seen in for loop, that we are repeating certain tasks within the body of the for loop. Here also in while loop, we will be repeating certain statements depending upon a given condition. In for loop, we were sure that we have to perform this particular loop for 10 times or 5 times. Okay, so we were definite that how for how many number of times this loop is going to repeat. But when we are not sure that how many number of times this loop will be executing, in that case we use while loops. That's why these loops are also known as indefinite loops, because we don't know the number of times, or we don't know the exact steps that for how many times this loop is going to work. That's why we call it as an indefinite loop. This is the syntax of the while loop, that this loop basically works on a condition. In for loop, we have not given any condition, but in while loop, we work with the help of a condition. If that particular condition that we give in while loop, if that condition is true, till that condition is true, basically, till that condition, till we get the positive result or true result from that condition, till then the certain step of certain set of statements is executed. As soon as the given condition becomes false, our loop stops there. Okay, here we don't know how many number of times the loop is going to be executed, but we have given a condition here that if certain condition becomes condition becomes false, at that time we need to stop. Okay, so this is how we make the programs using for while loop. While loop is that is why while loop is known as indefinite loop, because we don't know how many number of times we are going to use the statement. Let's quickly see how to use this statement, how to use this while loop in the program. Here, in while loop, you need to give the value or the condition first before writing the program. And this program is for generating a geometric series. Geometric series is that series in which the number is multiplied by itself in every step, multiplied by 2, sorry, not itself, multiplied by 2 in every step. So here I'm going to define or assign value to n variable, and we will be playing with this n variable in this while loop while this n variable is less than 200. While the value of n variable is less than 200, till then we have to do these particular statements or perform these particular actions. We will be printing the value of n, and at every step we need to multiply n by 2. Okay, so while loop is having 3 steps, basically: initialization, condition, and then increment or updation. Updation can be increment or decrement. Okay, it can be an increment value or it can be a decrement value. Fine. So this is these are the 3 basic statements used in while loop also. Now see what will be the result of this while loop. See, this is a geometric progression series, GP series. 1, then 1 multiplied by 2 is 2, then 2 multiplied by 2 is 4, 4 multiplied by 2 is 8, 8 multiplied by 2 is 16, 16 multiplied by 2 is 32, and so on. So this is how we use while loop. Here we have not given the number of times, how many number of times from 1 to 8 or 1 to 10. this loop is going to execute. Here we have given a condition. As you can see, we have given only the condition that till n is less than 200, till then this loop will be executed. As soon as the next number in this progression series will be what? 128 multiplied by 2 is equal to 256. So that at that moment, when the number becomes 256, that means that number is greater than 200. So at that moment, our condition becomes false and immediately the loop stops. So it has printed the values up to 128 only. Okay, immediately when the value of n becomes more than 200, the loop has stopped working. Okay, and whatever the values were there, all the values were printed. Fine. So this is how we work with the for loops. Now let's see what's the next topic in our today's session. Yeah, very interesting topic, data structures. Data structures are a very basic concept, very fundamental concept of any programming language in computer science. In various fields of computer science, we make use of data structures for writing efficient programs. When we play with numbers, or when we deal with numbers in a programming language, we need to store these numbers, store these values, sometimes not only numbers, but string values are also there. String means text values are also there. And we have to arrange these values in memory area. We can't store all these variables or values that we are dealing with in a particular program or language. We can't store these values randomly at any place in memory. There are certain rules, there are certain steps that we need to follow while saving the variables in memory. So for that particular purpose, we need the concept of data structures. These are the basic data structures that are there in every computer science you can say branch. Arrays, linked lists, stacks, queues, these are the basic data structures that we use. Arrays are the data structures where all the data elements are of same type and they are saved with a certain index starting from value 0, and all the values are saved in a sequential manner. Sequential manner means starting from first index to the last index, and in a sequence, in a serial order, all the values are stored. Okay, so this is how we store values in arrays. And one more important thing about arrays is that we store similar types of values only in arrays. We can't store one number and one string in arrays. We have to, if we are storing numbers only, then it will be totally numeric array. If we are going to store strings, then it will totally be a string array. Okay, this is how we use arrays. And the next data structure is linked list. Linked list is a data structure where the data elements are combined with a link. Here the values are not stored in a sequential order, but they are linked with the link value. They are linked with the pointer value that will point to the next item in the list. Okay, that's why it is known as a linked list. We link the values of, or we link the data elements of the list with each other by using the pointers. Okay. The next data structure is a stack. Now we deal with the stacks in our daily life also. Sometimes you keep the stack of books on the top of the table. The first book that you are storing or you are keeping on the table is at the bottom, and the last book that you are keeping on the table on that stack is on the top of the stack. Okay, and if you want to take out the first book from the stack, then that book is from the top, not from the bottom. Okay, this is how we work with stacks, that is last in first out operation or first in last out operation. So these two operations are performed on stacks. Whatever value you have given in the last, you have to take out that first. And if you are giving the or otherwise also you can say that if whatever value you have given in the first place, that value will be taken out at the last, at the end. Another important data structure is a queue. As you have seen that at the bus stop also, or in the bank also, we make a queue to get entertained, and whoever has come first will be entertained first. So first in first out is the concept of operation for queues. Whatever value is entered at the first place will be taken out first, and whatever value is given at the end will be taken out in the end. These are the basic data structures of computer science, but there are some other data structures that are Python specific, that we use in Python language specifically. These are some other data structures also. These are lists, tuples, and dictionaries. These are the basic data structures that we use in Python language. List is the first data structure that we are going to discuss today. It is similar to array, but the difference between these two data structures is that in arrays you can save only the similar data type items, okay? But in lists you can save the data elements that are of different data types. You can save different data elements in a list, like you can save numbers as well as string values, as well as decimal values or float values also. Okay, both numeric and string values can be stored in a Python list. Next data structure is a tuple. Tuple is similar to list. In the similar manner, the way we will create lists, in the same way we will be able to create tuples. But there is one major difference between lists and tuples, that tuples are immutable. Immutable means tuples cannot be modified. The values can be read only. We can just fetch those values. We can read those values from the tuple that we have given, but we cannot modify. Once the tuple is created, it is created. We cannot modify the values afterwards, right? So the last data structure that is the topic of today is dictionary. In dictionary, we contain the in dictionary it contains the key value pairs as its data elements. Key value pair means one is the key, one is the value. The values are stored in a paired manner. The basic value that the data element is the value, and the key is the index of that particular value, the location of that value. So in dictionary, the values are stored like in pairs of key and value. We will see how to work with this dictionary in the next slide. So this is, first of all, we will start with creating a list, how to create a list. In Python, we create the lists by using square brackets. Okay, within the square brackets and separated by comma, whatever values you give will become the elements of the particular list. Here in the on the screen, you can see in this example, I have given the values 1, 2, 3, example 3.132. These are the mixed types of values. Here I have given integer values, numerical values, as well as string value, and float value also is included in the list. So, but all these values are separated by commas. So these are different elements of the list. So this is how we create the list. Let's quickly see how we create the list in Python. You can give any name to the list, and by using the square brackets, you can define the values. My list is equal to, within the square brackets, you have to write 1, 2, 3, comma, and element, whatever string value you want to give, 4.15, whatever. At the end, you have to give the square bracket also. Okay. And now let's print the elements of this list. Print my list. Okay. So let's save this program and run. So this is how your list is printed. Whatever elements you have given, all those elements are printed in this by using this print statement. And The name of the list is my list, so the list is printed here. Okay, so let's see what more we can do with the lists. We can add elements in a list. Here we have just created the list by giving some values, 4-5 values I have put in the list. But if you want to add some elements after you have created the list, so you can use these three functions: append function, extend function, and insert function. These three functions are the basic functions that are used to perform the actions on the lists. Basically, for adding the elements in the list. Let's quickly see how you can use all these functions with the lists. Here, suppose after creating the list, I want to append the list. Append means to add the values at the end of the list, but as another list, as a sub list. Okay, so see how it will work. My list dot append, you have to give the name of the function dot append, and within that append function I am going to give some other value, 500 comma 100. Suppose this is for example only, right? And now let's print the list again. Print my list, right? So this is how we append the list. See the difference in the output. The first print statement prints the basic list that I have created, and the second print statement prints the list with the appended values. Here I have appended 2 values, but those 2 values are considered as one sub list of the list, of the main list. Okay, so with the append function you can append 2 lists together. Okay, and if you use extend function in place of append, then what will happen? If I change the name of the function from append to extend, now see what will happen. Now see the square bracket of the sub list 500 and 100, that is removed in the output. This is the only difference here, because while extending the list by 2 values, 500 and 100, those 2 values are added to the previous list only. Okay, so those 2 values are extended. The list has been extended in the second method. In the first method, 2 lists are appended. Okay, and in the second method, the values are added to the list. Fine. So this is the difference between append function and extend function. Now, if you want to insert a new value into the list, you can use the insert function, and while using the insert function, we have to specify the location of the element, where you want to insert. Here, the index, the index we were talking about earlier, that index of the list elements start from 0 to n-1. Here, suppose 6 elements are there in the list. Here I have given 5 elements in the list. So the index of the list is 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay. So index of the list is 0 to 4. Total 5 elements, but index is 0 to 4. Okay. So here, while using insert function, you have to specify a particular index, that at which location you want to add a new element. Suppose I want to add a new element at index 1. I have to specify the position also. I have to specify the location, that at location 1, at index 1, I have to enter a new element. Okay. Now see the result of this statement. See, what is the index of new element? 1. Okay. At the first position, at the index value 1, this new element is added. Fine. The first, not at the first position. At the first position is value 1, that is having index 0. Okay, so it is the insert function deals with the index value. It does not give you the position by using the place value. It is the index value. At index value 1, you have entered a new element. Now suppose if you want to delete the element, any particular element from the list, there are certain functions and keywords that we can use for deleting operation also. There is one delete keyword. This is how we have used. Now for deleting the elements from the list, del keyword is used. Del keyword that will delete a particular value after a certain value. It also deals with the index value, that after suppose there are 6 values in the list, after 4th value all the elements of the lists will be deleted. If you give del in bracket 4, then that will delete all the remaining values apart from first 4 values of the list. All the remaining values will be deleted from the list. Okay. The second function that we can use to delete some value from the list is the pop function. Whatever, if we want to take out some value from the list, that operation is known as popping, and we can save that element, we can save that value that we have popped out from the list, we can save that value in a other variable, in another variable for our reference. And the last one is a remove function. In remove function, we can remove the value by giving its value, by giving its name. Okay, suppose I want to remove new element that I have added in the list earlier. If I want to remove that new element, then I have to give the value of that. So in remove function, I will be writing remove new element, and that particular element will be removed from the list. Let's see how we can do this in Python. Let's see. Here I have made the list, and this is the list, and I will use the del keyword, and up to suppose 4th value I want to delete all the other values from the list. And again, when you will print the list, only then you will come to know that whichever values are retained and whatever values are deleted. So let's quickly run this program again. See, the first 4 values are retained and the rest of the values are removed from the list. It also deals with the index value, I think. Index. Okay. Delete keyword has deleted the value at index 3. Okay. So this has deleted the value at index 3. At index 3, the value element was there. So that value has been deleted from the list. Now, if you want to pop out some value from the list, and you want to store it at some other variable, in some other variable, then we can use this pop function. We will print after popping out. Here I'm using variable a to save the popped element, mylist dot pop, and pop function also deals with the pop function also deals with the index value. Okay, so using the index value, by giving the index of the certain element, you can pop out that particular element from the list, and then you can print the popped element as well. Whatever element you have removed from the list, that element you can print, and you can print the list also. Let us see how this function has worked. See, popped element is element, or popped value कर देते हैं यहाँ पे, otherwise the difference is not very much clear. Now see, again see, popped value is element. The value at 3rd index is element. So this popped value is element, and the remaining list is printed again. After removing value element from the list, the remaining list is printed. So this is how we make use of pop function. And if you want to remove or you want to remove a particular value by giving its value, here with these del function and pop function, we have given the index value. But if you want to use the remove function, there we will be using the value itself. Okay, so here if we are using mylist, this remove function, mylist dot remove, which value you want to remove? Suppose 4.15. I want to remove this value, 4.15. Okay, so after removing this value, again I will be printing my list. See, this is how this function works. It has removed the value 4.15. Here I have not given the index value. I have not given the position of the variable, position of the value. Here I have given the value of the element. Okay, so the value 4.5 has been removed from the list and the remaining elements are printed. Okay, so this is how you use remove function. And after that, if you want to clear this whole list, you want to remove all the elements from the list, then there is one function, that is clear. Simply write mylist dot clear. Mylist dot clear, it will delete all the elements altogether in one step. See, the list is now empty. Okay, earlier with the first print statement, we have printed the elements of the list, but when we have used dot clear function, all the values from the list have been deleted. Okay, so let's wind up with this session today. I think so. If you are having any queries, let's quickly move to the quiz section. I had to discuss some more topics with you, but the time does not permit me. Let us quickly move to the quiz section of this session. Here is some quiz questions for you guys. Can you tell me the output of this code? What will be the output of this code that is given?
0,
Ma'am,
1 to 9.
0.
8, 10.
0, 2,
Yes.
0, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10.
Yeah, all the first 5 even numbers will be displayed from 0 to 10.
10.
0 to 10, the even numbers will be displayed. Here in range function, we have given 0 as the starting value, 11 as the last value, stop value. So the loop will be executed till 11 minus 1, that is equal to 10. And step value is 2. Okay. So by giving the step value 2, this loop will be executed and the result will be printed as 0, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. Yeah, exactly. What are the errors in this code?
For x in range minus 10,
Colon is
0,
given.
comma 0,
Colon is
then
given.
last
One by one.
colon.
Colon is given.
One by one.
Colon there.
One by one.
Actually given colon.
At the end of the for statement, it should be colon and not
Yes.
comma.
Yes. Comma and colon are exchanged.
Yes.
In
And next line, if x
No,
percentage
if
2
they
not
won't-
1 equal to sign is
You
needed.
don't have any
Yes.
bracket.
Yeah, in
Not
the
equal
second statement where if statement is given, if x mod 2 is equal to or not to, these two signs have been mixed up. The sign is not correct. If you want to use not equal to sign, then you have to use one exclamation mark and one equal to sign. If you want to equate it, use equal to sign, then you have to use two equal to signs, not this. Okay, so this is again mixed up, and the last statement is having capital X. Okay, X in uppercase. That is also an error because Python is a case sensitive language. So small x and capital X is different in Python. So this will give you an error.
Ma'am, what about
these are the
the
errors in this.
parenthesis? In the if statement, parenthesis is missing, right?
In if statement, yeah, that is option. If you want to give, then you can give the parenthesis. If you don't want to give it this way, also it will work.
Okay.
Parentheses are not required, not mandatory. You can skip the parentheses also. If there is only one operation, then you can skip. If you want to specify and you want to make it very clear, then you can follow the parentheses. Otherwise, not necessary. Okay. So what will be the output of this code? The code that is given here. What we are doing here.
Accepting
We
a
are entering-
number.
We are accepting a
Reversing
number
a
from the
number is it?
keyboard.
Is it
Yes.
reversing a number?
Yeah, that's absolutely correct. We are first accepting a number from the user. We are using this input statement to get the number from the user and converting it into an integer value. Then in the next step, I am conserving this integer value into some other variable so that at the end we can compare. And this temporary number that I have created here, I am comparing this number till this number becomes a 0. Till then, we need to perform all these steps that are given here. In the first step, d is equal to m mod 10. In this step, as you have already told me, that modulus operator gives us the remainder, right?
Remainder.
So this modulus operator, yeah, this modulus operator will give us the remainder. So we will be
Ma'am, but this
putting
will be
these remainders
printing
in
the digits
variable
in
d.
different lines, ma'am. Ma'am, print int of d is given, na? So it will be printing in different lines, na? It won't be
No,
the
it will
reverse.
not. It will be, it will be print. Obviously, we are giving it in the body of the while loop. That's why it will give us it in different lines. But the digits will be in reverse order of the number.
Or
Right.
you can put that
So
formula to
that
find
you
the
can.
reverse, na?
Yeah.
Using that variable reverse, we
Yes.
can give and multiply it by 10 plus that reminder d. Then we will be getting the
Yes,
number.
there
Na?
are.
Last,
Yes,
we can find the
this is.
reverse.
Yes. This is a simple method. That is also another method for finding the reverse of a certain value.
Okay, ma'am.
And in
Ma'am,
the
one more thing, ma'am. One
Yes,
more
ma'am.
thing, ma'am.
Yes.
First, I couldn't join, so I didn't get your detail. Will you please put in the chat box your details? Okay, ma'am.
My details. Okay. So in the next step, we are calculating the we are doing the division operation. Here I'm using 2 forward slashes for dividing. Why 2? What is the
Taking
purpose
the
of
quotient.
We are getting the quotient.
Floor division.
Integer.
Yeah, this is the
Integer.
floor
Integer
division.
division.
Integer
Yes, this
portion.
is the floor division operator. Using this operator gives us the integer value only. If I use single division operator here, at that time it will calculate the decimal value. So we don't want the decimal part of the division operation. We want only the integer part. So that's why we have used the floor division operator. Okay, fine. So this program is also clear to all of you. Now, what is the error in this code? This is if elif example. What is the error in this code? I know this program is
No that str.
there is no need of this str function here. Already the input entered by the user is in string form. Although it will not generate an error. But it is
Elif
not
or
necessary.
Last line else
equal to
spelling is
while
not correct,
after that
ma'am.
it's a colon, not a semicolon.
Yes, very nice. So in yellow color Y code,
Yes, it's a
semicolon is given at the end, but there should be a colon, and the last one is
else
the
Spelling mistake
spelling.
of L.
Yes, the spelling.
spelling mistake in else. So if you by mistake do the mistake in writing the spellings of a certain word, even then you get an error. So what will be the output of this code? Right now we have just discussed lists. What will be the output?
First
Hello Python.
Hello,
Python.
Python.
Yeah, as we have discussed that index value starts from 0 and to the last value -1. So here the index value of these three values will be 0, 1, 2. So at the index value 0, the value is hello. At the index value 2, the value is Python. So the output will be hello Python. At the index value 1, the value 2 is there. So we have not included that value in the output. So this will be the output of the program. So thank you teachers. If that's all.